welcome to Gab and Jam, episode 323.
Our topic today is how much formal education is necessary for the DIY rock star.
I love it. So why did you propose this topic? This is, we're, of course, have our guest host, Zandalee Henderson.
Yeah.
And she is an actor and musical theater expert. And so what made you propose this particular topic?
Just because I went to school for theater and it's interesting to reflect back on like everything that I learned, thinking about whether or not it was necessary, like all those things.
Okay.
Just thinking about that since graduation.
Okay.
And like what I would advise other people to do.
Okay. All right. So we'll get to her advice at the end, but some points to consider about whether or not formal education is necessary for the DIY rockstar. The first point you made is that going to school for any creative pursuit is not always necessary. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, especially in my case, like theater, you don't necessarily need to go to college for that.
Okay.
You can take, classes, places. There's a lot of resources online for things these days. So, and it's not, there's not one particular way you have to learn how to act or do theater or anything. There's so many different ways you could do it that there's not one direct path, like a doctor or a lawyer or something.
Okay. And I think the same could probably be said for musicians for sure. Because there's some musicians who don't know how to read any kind of music, who've never had any formal training, no songwriting training, and then others who have had it all.
And if you want to go to like do production or something, it's not always something supported by colleges. Like you don't always learn that stuff at every school.
Right.
Sometimes you have to go outside of school to even get that training.
What you were saying when you compared your background to others' background when you did summer stop.
Yeah.
How, different schools who had what they considered musical theater programs focused on different things.
Actor first, singer first, dancer first.
Right.
Like, they all had different.
And then even the whole thing about job hunting, that some of them focused on that. And I mean, that's a very practical skill, but so there is no alignment between different schools as to what that curriculum entails.
Yeah, it's very different everywhere. And you can, go and make your own curriculum by taking different classes with different people on your own time.
Yeah. And choose the teachers that you actually want. All right, but that leads to our next point about how much formal education is necessary for the DIY rockstar. Your point was that it added a layer of discipline for you to go.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Basically I knew, because it's creative, pursuits, everything's so big. Like there's so many different ways you can go about learning things and doing things. And so I knew for myself that if I just out of high school was like, I want to do theater and didn't go somewhere to do it and to learn specific things, I'd get overwhelmed by how many different things that I could do.
Right.
And I probably would just shut down and not ever do anything. Because I wouldn't be able to make up my mind. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So it's easy to go somewhere and they're like, okay, here's your curriculum and you're going to learn this, and that.
Let's start with this and then you'll do this and
then you'll work your way up to that.
Yeah.
And so that made things a lot easier. And, over time I've broadened my horizons and I'll go and do my own things now that I've graduated.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have been able to do that straight out of high school.
Yeah, it would have been a lot.
For me.
Yeah. All right, so that leads to the next point, actually, for how much formal education is necessary for the DIY rockstar. It organizes your resources, which is kind of what I heard you say, as in the school develops a curriculum and then you follow that curriculum. And that way, like you said, acting, singing, dancing, where to start. You had lessons and you had resources that were available to you that they let you know about even in the local community.
Especially for me, because I didn't do community theater. I only did stuff through the high school.
Right.
And so I don't know anything about the theater scene in this area of Michigan, really, still. Because I've only been back for a couple months and haven't had time to really sink my teeth into that. I'm learning more and more, but I knew nothing about the theater scene. I think it would have been difficult for me to plop myself into there, but when you go to school, you're plopped into a theater scene and you're automatically like connected into it, you know?
I like that. Which leads to the next point with for how much formal education is necessary for the DIY rockstar, which is it creates an automatic network. Like you said, these people will introduce you to folks who have similar interests, and you'll get a chance to network. Even being an introvert, it's just part of the natural process of going to school together.
It is also different though, school to school. Like that's something that if you are an extrovert or very like passionate and determined, you could do on your own by joining like Facebook groups and community like boards and like, you know, getting involved in your community can help you do that, because, you know, at certain schools you might have a network of people, but like not every theater program is going to be U of M.
Right.
Where it's like those connections will get you to Broadway.
Right.
Some of them it's not going to be. So it's really like a maybe, like, you never know. It's a mixed bag. As to what kinds of connections and how strong that network is going to be.
Right, how valuable those connections are going to be as well.
Yes.
I like that. All right, the next point for how much formal education is necessary for the DIY rockstar is, one of the things that you mentioned is that it gives you experience before anyone has given you a job. That part of the natural outgrowth of them training you is them putting you in a position to actually do the work, which adds to your resume, so that when you actually go out to seek a regular, you know, full-time job in that, you already have some experience on your resume.
Yeah. And with theater, again, it's different at every single school, because I knew people at my summer stock jobs that had never done a straight play before or a Shakespearean play before at their school, but they get to do professional auditions for theaters that come to them every year. So that's an experience that I didn't have a ton of that they had, but I had done, you know, a lot of classic works and a lot of straight plays, and they had never really done any of those. So it's really different wherever you go, but you get some kind of experience in the field before you're just thrown into it.
And it's great to at least show that you have touched, like you said, all that, so that people have more confidence as they bring you in for their productions. Like, oh, you've already done something similar. All right, and then finally, this is our you know, Bruce and I's always our point for whether or not formal education is necessary for the DIY rockstar is continual learning, no matter what your craft, whether it's musicianship, whether it's acting, whether it's singing, dancing, that it doesn't hurt. So even if you don't decide to have a formal education, the fact that you're always, I guess, finding those resources on your own and trying to develop, you know, once you have some threads of where you want to go, you know, it doesn't hurt, because it adds to your toolkit for when you actually sit to create or when you actually go out to perform. The more you learn, like even, and I know this is way back when, but even when you were learning makeup, that, you know, you were learning it in, you know, in middle school and high school in order to look better, but that has also been valuable on your journey as an actor, because you've been able to help other people when it's time for productions to use that same skill. So, and that's something you learned on your own. That's not necessarily something that was part of the programs, but just by having that as a part of your toolkit has been useful, right?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to ask you the question, do you think it has been worth it to pay for it? Because that's always the issue. You know, I mean, student loan debt and just the cost of education and the time it takes, because, you know, you need to dedicate that 4 or 5 years to that. Do you think it has been worth it for the time and money that you've spent toward a formal education?
I think for me it has. It's always like hard because, again, I didn't go to a school that's like U of M or super well connected, or even I went to school kind of in the middle of nowhere. So it helped with costs and stuff. Because we didn't have to spend too much money. And I felt like the program was smaller. It was very focused. I was able to get a lot of one-on-one kind of attention.
And you actually were able to get into productions.
I was. And and I did form some connections through, you know, we participated in like the Kennedy Center Festival and things like that, that were able to allow me to, we had visiting professors come in sometimes. So it wasn't as well connected as maybe one of those bigger schools, but it cost less and it was a smaller class size. And, you know, I think for me, it's what I needed. But I don't think it's necessary for everyone, but I think for me it definitely helped a lot to streamline my experience. And I made a lot of connections and friends that I think are going to help me.
Right.
Yeah.
We love it.
Yeah.
All right, what do you guys think? How valuable do you think a formal education is for the DIY rockstar? Please leave your comments below. And what else? Obtanium Flow. Singles are, you can stream them anywhere, your favorite streaming platform. Videos are on YouTube. And of course, the Daylight video is coming soon. So make sure you stay subscribed and locked in for that. And if you dig the vibe and you want to be a part of the tribe, be sure to
Subscribe.
wishing you love, peace, and
Chicken.
yeah.